At this time, we're going to bring on our guest for the evening, Baltimore Ravens superfan Katelyn McCarthy. Katelyn, welcome. Happy holidays. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Is that a Ravens hat you got on?
It is, yes.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Very
Pretty cool.
Thank you.
Very festive. Can you just tell us like what you do, like your podcast? Tell us a little bit about that so the people watching can know.
So I do a weekly podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's called Kicking Off with Katelyn. It covers the NFL. Each week I do predictions for each game that goes on. I cover the news that goes around the league every week.
Awesome stuff. Make sure to go check that out at Kicking Off with Katelyn. And we're going to talk about this Giants-Ravens game. I know your Ravens have been doing pretty well over the last couple of weeks, in particular since the Cleveland game, which ended off very well for you guys. And I got to ask, where do you see the Ravens as a possible playoff team? Disappointing ending a year ago. Is this a team that's capable of making some noise?
I think we can get somewhere in the playoffs, but I think that since there's so many good teams right now in the AFC, that it might be hard for us to go far. I do think the Ravens are going to squeeze their way into a wild card this year. It is going to be tough because we don't control our own destiny like we did last year. We have to rely on other teams to lose. But considering our last two games, we play the Giants and the Bengals. We have an easier schedule compared to the Browns, Colts, and Dolphins. So I do feel that we are going to have an edge up and make our way into the wild card race this year.
I got to agree. I think basically we just talked about it, Baltimore, Miami, and Vegas, you have the easiest schedule. You have us, and you should beat us, and then you have Jacksonville, who you also should beat, where I think Miami splits. What do you think, Hank?
Wait, I thought they beat Jacksonville last week.
I'm sorry, not Jacksonville. Who do you play week 17?
We
Cincinnati?
play
the Bengals week 17, no?
That's who it is. The Colts play the Jaguars, though, and then the Colts have the Steelers this week. So that might be weird. You might have to root for your
the Colts lost to the Jaguars again?
That's right. They lost week 1, wasn't it? That was an insane game.
Yeah, that was the only win the Jaguars got the whole season.
Yeah, and 1-0 now since 1-13, 1-4. They're probably going to be 1-14 this week, but
that might get the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about your quarterback, Lamar Jackson. His numbers, obviously, we've seen they're not the best compared to last year, but his last 2 games, he had some big performances. Is he a quarterback that you feel can be trusted in a big game?
I think ever since he had COVID, I feel that he is back to his MVP self from last season. He struggled a lot in the games before that. He struggled, especially against the Patriots, which was a game I didn't think that we should have lost or that he should have struggled in, considering the Patriots defense hasn't been great at all this season. But I think that the Ravens honestly needed to lose a few games to get momentum, and I feel like we have momentum now. And I think that Lamar Jackson proved himself against the Browns that he can win games with his arm, not only his legs. I think if he continues to play the way he is right now, that he can be trusted in big games. But I do think it's going to come down to if he could win a playoff game. I think that's going to be the big question because he's been in it the past 2 seasons, was unable to get a win. So I think if the Ravens make the playoffs this year, he's going to have to win the game or he's not going to be considered a top quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think a win could really help him in terms of the way we view him. And yeah, that Browns game, that was huge. And I can't believe he came back the way he did. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was fun. It was actually kind of exciting watching, but also very stressful at the same time. It was like a movie, and I feel like that game just like gave us the momentum for the rest of the season, because if we didn't win that game, it was pretty much over, even though there was obviously still 3 more weeks to go in the regular season. But I just felt like that was just like the spark we needed, and that was like a game we really need to win. And like the Ravens played the Browns week 1, but that was a totally different Browns team. I felt like they came together on both sides of the ball throughout the season. So that was a completely different Browns team that we played 2 weeks ago, and it was a huge win for the Ravens.
Yeah, we saw how they played against the Giants, particularly last week. They really have gotten better and have come a long way since that game.
They have. Folks, if you have any questions, comments for Katelyn, feel free to comment in the comments section. We'll get back to you as soon as we can regarding Ravens Giants. Actually, my best friend is a Ravens fan, so we've been talking about it the whole week, and it's I'm pretty much trying to boost his ego up a little bit heading into this game. Let's talk about, Katelyn, your offensive line. And obviously, Marshall Yanda retired in the offseason, and then Ronnie Stanley. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, and Ronnie Stanley is out for the year. But Orlando Brown is trying to play his way into a contract extension. Talk about him and this Baltimore offensive line, which in part, a lot of people thought would somewhat struggle. Not really struggle, but not be as good as they were last year. But Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, they're the best rushing attack in the NFL. Well, with them and Lamar, of course. That trio, triple-headed monster, I like to call it. The O-line has been absolute recipe for success.
Yeah, so I think that the offensive line definitely struggled, especially when Ronnie Stanley went down. We also had issues at the center. Matt Skur was having difficulty snapping the ball. We had to make a lot of adjustments on the offensive line. But ever since we made those adjustments, it's definitely been successful. I think they are doing a better job by protecting Lamar Jackson. He had 0 sacks in the Cowboys game like 3 weeks ago. And they are doing a great job for the running game, because that's a huge part of the Ravens offense is that running game. And I felt like it also struggled a little bit throughout the middle of the season because of the offensive line, because it always starts with the offensive line, and that's where it has to start for every single play. And if your offensive line can't protect the quarterback and running backs, the offense isn't going to be successful. So to see that they have adjusted to all the injuries on the line, and with Marshall Yanda retiring, it's really good to see how successful it's been. And I hope that Orlando Brown can get a contract extension. I think he deserves it by the way he's playing. But yeah, I do hope that that they continue this success for the offensive line, especially going through the last couple of weeks of the season, which will be much needed, especially in this game against the Giants.
Yeah, and another key factor on your offense would be Mark Andrews, the tight end. And as Tom and I have probably mentioned a million times, the Giants cannot cover tight ends. And if I had $1 for every time I'd say that, I'd be a very rich man, and I'd be at every Giant game by now. But anyways, we know he's a big threat. He's got 7 touchdowns and he's the 4th-ranked tight end in the league, regardless of how the Giants cover tight ends. What do you see that makes him such a big threat?
I think he's a good threat for the Ravens because he's a good blocker for the offense, but he's also a great receiver. The Ravens have struggled for so many years with their wide receivers. They've had much success in their tight ends throughout all of their years that I've been a fan, from Todd Heap, Dennis Pitta, all the way now to Mark Andrews. So I think that he is going to be a problem for the Giants, although the Giants have had a good defense this year. They definitely improved a lot from last year. But since Mark Andrews is so versatile in how he can block and also be a good receiver, I think that will be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with me is you look at the Giants the last 2 weeks, right? They've given up receiving touchdowns to Dan Arnold from the Cardinals. 2 weeks ago, you're like, well, who the hell is Dan Arnold? Last week, Austin Hooper, who is finally starting to get out of his slump a little bit.
Even in the Philadelphia game, Richard Rodgers.
Yeah, 3rd-string tight end. Both Giants-Eagles games this year, the Philadelphia 3rd-string tight end leads them in receiving. So, folks, if you have Mark Andrews in fantasy and you're in the championship, he's a must-start this week. Don't leave him on your bench. If you don't win, you can blame me. But I really like Mark Andrews this week. That's the bottom line. This defense, though, Katelyn, it's led by Don, they call him Wink Martindale. This is a unit we know is one of Baltimore's strong suits. top to bottom, they're great. How vital will it be with everyone on it being healthy in this game? Because that defense, I believe they're ranked 9th in total defense, I want to say. So they have a lot of guys. Calais Campbell, you acquired Yannick Ngakoue, and the cornerbacks are fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job with the defense. This is his 3rd season as a defensive coordinator. He was previously the linebackers coach. So he's been around that Ravens defense even before he was named the defensive coordinator. I really like him, and I love what he's done with our defense. And especially with all the injuries that the defense has had this year, like Calais Campbell, he's a great player, but he's definitely struggled ever since his calf injury. He's not been the same, and you could just tell on the field. And also with the cornerbacks, Marcus Peters right now is also with the calf injury. Jimmy Smith is struggling this season. So with all of the injuries and obstacles that the defense has had this year, and to still be ranked 9th in total defense is pretty amazing. And I feel like he's just done a really good job for the defense, because the Ravens, for all of the years that I've been a fan, their defense has always been strong. Probably one of like the best part of our football team. So I think he's done a really good job with the defense.
Quickly here, we have a comment from Steve. He asks you, are you surprised of Mark Ingram's downslide this year after he had such a good year in 2019?
I was surprised in the beginning of the season. I really did like him so much last year, and I felt like he was really great for that running game. But I feel that he's now becoming older. He's not as fast and valuable as he was in his previous years. And ever since we drafted J.K. Dobbins, I feel like Mark Ingram isn't really needed anymore. And J.K. Dobbins has definitely made a statement in his rookie year. Besides Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards, he's right up there with his rushing yards. He's had 4 straight games with a rushing touchdown. Like, he's really filled in that spot for the Ravens running game. And I also think that Gus Edwards has done a great job. He's been on the team for a few years. And I feel that Mark Ingram isn't really needed anymore for this Ravens running game to be successful. And I don't think he's obviously going to return next year, and that we will be doing well with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, as well as Lamar Jackson, for our running game going forward.
So let's get back to the secondary. We see that it mainly consists of Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters. What has impressed you the most about this group?
I think they've just been able to make plays. Marlon Humphrey has about 9 forced fumbles this season, and he's just been so great on that Ravens defense. He's been there since 2017, and I feel like people don't give him enough credit for what he does. He's a very good player. He's very good at what he does. I also love Marcus Peters. He's probably my favorite player right now. Unfortunately, obviously, he's hurt right now, but hopefully he can be healthy going forward, because he's definitely going to be needed in the playoffs. And when he was injured and not doing so great in the Browns game, you could definitely tell how important he is to that team, because when he was struggling because of his injury, the receivers were obviously getting more yards and catches and things like that. So they're a huge part to that defense. And I feel like Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey are in the top 5 cornerback duo in the NFL, and they don't get credit that they deserve.
Yeah, no, they don't. They're great. Both of them have a knack for just causing turnovers. You mentioned, I believe it's like 8 or 9 forced fumbles Humphrey has this year. I mean, he's pretty close to 10, and that's something cornerbacks don't necessarily do a whole lot. He has a knack for punching that ball out. And another kid I really like is Patrick Queen, the rookie out of LSU. Leads the team in tackles, I want to say 98 tackles, and was actually getting some consideration for the Pro Bowl this season. As a rookie, that's very illustrious. And acquiring him, Yannick Ngakoue, can you hone in on those 2 guys for a second and just talk about their impact? Because Yannick Ngakoue, it took him a while to get his feet wet in Baltimore's defensive scheme, but he did have 2 sacks last week. I like what I've seen from him, and Patrick Queen is all over the place.
Yeah, so Yannick Ngakoue, he had a huge game last week, and I was also just going to say that I think it took him a little while to get used to the Ravens defense. With his 2 sacks, he also had a forced fumble against his former team, Jacksonville. definitely made a huge statement. I've also noticed from him in previous games that he is very good at applying pressure to the quarterback. He's obviously, besides last week's game, hasn't really been able to complete sacks on the team. But now that he's starting to get more used to it, obviously he had 2 sacks last week. He's definitely applying a lot of pressure to that quarterback. I honestly love Patrick Queen. He was a great addition to this defense, and I'm so excited to see what he's going to do in the future. I honestly thought he deserved to be in the Pro Bowl because he is leading the team in tackles. He has 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a defensive touchdown. Like, he's been so great to that linebacker position, which has been weak. A few years ago, CJ Mosley, our captain of the defense, our leader of the defense, left to go to the Jets. We also had Zadarius Smith lead to the Packers. And then it was just Matt Judon, which was honestly the only linebacker making plays. And now that we have Patrick Queen and we also have Malik Harrison, that has been getting his time also on defense, seeing all of those players has been like such a huge impact for this defense. But I think Patrick Queen and Yannick Ngakoue are going to be dominant as the rest of this season goes and for future seasons ahead.
John Suggs comments, Steelers are not a Super Bowl team. Care to chime in, Katelyn, there? What's your thoughts on Pittsburgh lately? Do they have a get-right game this weekend, or do you see the slide can continue?
So, unfortunately, I have to root for the Steelers this week because they are playing the Colts. I don't think the Steelers are going to win this game. I think the Colts are doing really well. But other than that, the Steelers, they went 11-0, and then they lost 3 straight, as everybody knows. But they just haven't looked the same with all of the drop passes. The Steelers' red zone offense has been awful. Like, Ben Roethlisberger had 19 passing yards in the first half on Monday night. He was just horrendous. And I feel before they lost any games, I did feel that they were overrated. I did feel that they kind of were getting lucky in games, especially since when they played the Ravens at the end of November. They played the Ravens practice squad and they barely beat them.
Yeah.
And I think that if the Steelers are going to be in the playoffs, they clinch a spot right now, but it's still determined if they're going to win the AFC North because the Browns are right behind them. And depending on how this week's game goes between Cleveland and New York Jets, as well as Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, it could be a Week 17 game for the division. And with the way that the Steelers are playing, I don't think they're honestly even going to win a game in the AFC because, like I said before, that there's so many good teams in the AFC right now that, like, Pittsburgh, I feel like they lost their momentum. And I feel that if the Ravens have to play the Steelers again in the playoffs, I do think that the Ravens are the better team right now and they have momentum because, honestly, the teams that get hot right now towards the end of the seasons are the teams that make a stretch in the playoffs. Like we saw last year, the Tennessee Titans, nobody saw them coming into the playoffs. They they were the number 6 seed last year, and they went all the way to the AFC Championship. So I feel like it's teams like that that make a run, and I don't think the Steelers are going to go anywhere.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, I think the Steelers, I feel like they pretty much played their best football in their first 11 games. And we didn't even mention the fact that they lost 2 of their linebackers, Devin Bush and Bud Dupree. They're done.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big loss. And you look at the way their offense has been, I would not be surprised if they get bounced in the first rounds.
Yeah, and also, obviously, those 2 injuries were crucial for that Pittsburgh defense. But at the same time, every team deals with injuries because if you think about it, when they played the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow and they didn't have Joe Mixon. They were playing with their backup quarterback and a different running back. So I feel that it just you have to make the best of what you have. Injuries are going to happen all the time in football.
Now, first of all, I want to see Steve's comment. I tell you who the Steelers don't want to see is.
I don't know if they're red hot.
Yeah, I mean the Dolphins are good, but I'm not 100% sure that they're going to the playoffs. If I'm being honest, in fact, I actually think they might. I think they're definitely going to lose one of their last 2 games, in my honest opinion. But what was I going to say? Let me follow that up with a question about the Browns, another team in your division. What do you think of their chances to possibly steal the AFC North? Because now all of a sudden, with the Steelers losing the Bengals and Cincinnati, which I think it's only the third time that's happened ever since 2003. That's crazy.
They were due.
Yeah, they were very due.
Yeah.
That just out of curiosity.
Yeah. So I think that right now the Browns are better than the Steelers. I think the Browns still, I feel, have a little bit more to prove. Baker Mayfield's definitely improving. He's been a little bit more consistent throughout the end of the season. I think that it is a really high possibility that the Browns may take this division, considering that the Steelers do have to play the Colts, and they've been on a good they've been really well this season. Their defense has been playing really well. Philip Rivers has been a really big key to that offense. I feel like he looks like a totally different quarterback since he was on the Chargers. I feel like he fits better into that team. For the Browns, I mean, they play the Jets. I mean, you never know what's going to happen considering the Rams just lost to the Jets. But I don't think the Browns are going to let that happen. I feel like the Rams kind of overlooked their opponent last week and just thought we could just easily beat the Jets. But the Jets, I have to give them credit because even though they only won one game this whole season, they put a lot of energy. They fight every game, especially against the Raiders. But anyways, I don't know. It's going to be a close one. Right at this moment, I can't tell who's going to win that Week 17 matchup if it has to come to division. Because I don't know if the Steelers are really going to lose 5 in a row. I don't know if I can see that happening, even though it's really high possibility. I just feel like it depends how they play this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I think if you told me I was even going to ask this question 3 weeks ago, I would have thought you're nuts. I would have thought no chance the Cleveland Browns are going to have a chance. But it's crazy how things can change in an instant. I mean, there's a reason that sometimes people call the NFL not for long.
Yeah, and although the Browns lost to the Ravens 2 weeks ago, they played amazing for that game. They put up 42 points. Baker Mayfield looked I feel like he kind of struggled in the first half, but once the game went on, he was completing every pass. I felt like I was watching that game. I was like, why are they catching every single pass? I was just so yes, I definitely think it's going to be interesting to see how that works out Week 17.
Yeah. Circling back to this game this weekend, Giants-Ravens, what scares you the most about playing the Giants, if anything? Because they're obviously an improved team from last season, but there's still a lot of holes on the Giants, and there's some holes on the Ravens too. They've kind of taken a little decline from last season. But what you say is the Giants' major strength that might confuse Baltimore a little bit on Sunday?
I think it's going to have to be the Giants' rushing defense. The Giants have definitely been able to hold the running game in their past couple of games. I mean, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are definitely top tier running back duo, I would have to say. And they were holding them to about 3 yards per rush, which we don't see that from those two usually. And especially since the Giants are definitely know that the Ravens offense is a running offense, that they mainly rely on their running game. I feel like they're going to be prepared for that. They're going to be prepared to face Dobbins and Edwards. So I feel that Lamar is going to have to rely a little bit more on his passing game. And I feel like this game is going to come down to how accurate each offense can be, because also it's not unsure if Daniel Jones or Colt McCoy is going to play for the Giants. But I feel like it's going to come down to the offenses and which one's going to be better, since both defenses have been playing well this year. But I do think that the Ravens have the edge. I think that since Lamar's last 3 games, he's been pretty accurate with the ball. He's been showing to all of us that he can pass the ball and that he can win games with his arms.
Yeah, I mean, it seems right now I don't know who's going to – I don't even know who's going to play this weekend, Jones or McCoy. Joe Judge and his coaching staff, he likes to keep that a secret, who's going out there lately. But the Ravens, reportedly, they've been prepping for both. So I think Jones, you have to worry more about him running on his feet, especially if he's 100%. McCoy's more of a pocket guy. I wouldn't be so much concerned. But,
they're completely two different quarterbacks. Like you just mentioned, like Daniel Jones is more of a runner. He'll get out of the pocket if he needs to. Colt McCoy likes to stay in the pocket. So I'm interested to see who's going to play because it's going to totally change our game plan.
Now, besides Daniel Jones, potentially, who are some of the other players in the Giants that you feel the Ravens need to watch out for?
Probably their secondary, their rookie Xavier McKinney from Alabama. He's been doing really well this season. And also since the Ravens do struggle with their receivers, I mean, Hollywood Brown had a great game last week with 98 yards, one of his highs of the seasons, but he has been very inconsistent, a lot of dropped passes. So I feel like the Giants corners and secondary is definitely something to watch out for. But for the Giants, I think it's going to be, they're going to have to watch out for Mark Andrews for the Ravens offense, but also our secondary. Hopefully we're going to be healthy and ready to play this game. I know Marcus Peters didn't practice, and neither did Jimmy Smith, but they could play potentially this game. So I think it's going to come back down to both of the Ravens secondary as well as the Giants.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first thing definitely for the Giants, I'm concerned about Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Both players have 6 touchdowns on the year. Dobbins is just a fantastic athlete, rookie out of Ohio State. He's been really good for the Ravens. Baltimore, number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. They do have a bottom-of-the-barrel passing attack, though. I think the key for the Giants would have to be pressuring Lamar Jackson. Use a similar strategy that was used against Russell Wilson. We're hoping to get Kyler Fackrell back this week, but the problem, Katelyn and Hank, the Giants have no pass rushers. They're all hurt, or we traded them away. So we're relying on
off Golden.
Marcus Golden's gone.
Yeah.
And sacks last year. And you brought up Mark Andrews. I think Giants have to contain him. Andrews 7 touchdowns on the year, and it's going to be real key. I think Andrews is a 3rd down target for Baltimore because last week Cleveland dominated time of possession, which is why the game felt like barely over 2 hours long. At least that's what it felt like to me. But I think limiting the turnovers is key for both teams. I think whoever wins the turnover battle wins this game because we've seen at times whoever's playing at quarterback for the Giants has a knack for turning the ball over. Lamar Jackson, I think, is hit or miss with the turnovers. I mean, you watch him more than I do. What concerns you the most about Lamar Jackson heading into this game? You brought up the run defense. Was it the rushing defense or the run defense you brought up for the Giants?
The run defense.
The run defense.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, I feel that it depends because Lamar Jackson could also be very inconsistent. But I hope to see him pass more because that's going to be a key for the playoffs, and he's been doing well with that. He does make me a little nervous when he runs a little too much because I mean, like, he's a quarterback. He's not supposed to be running all over the field. Of course, it's exciting, and I love to see it. I do get a little nervous when he runs a little too much. But I feel that if he plays how he's been playing for the last 3 weeks, I don't really have much to worry about. He just needs to secure the ball, make plays. I think that the receivers also need to help him out and actually catch the ball because that's been an issue the last couple of weeks. Like, they've been missing like key receptions that are they're thrown directly to them, and they just let go. And but yeah, I think that I'm excited for this game, and I think that the Ravens do have an edge. I think that they're just a better team going into this, and I think Lamar Jackson is the better quarterback depending on who's going to play, Daniel Jones or Colt McCoy. I feel that Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback.
100%. Regardless of which quarterback comes out for the Giants, Baltimore definitely has the edge there. Hank, we talk about this every week. I think this is a key for both teams, getting off the field on 3rd down.
Oh, very much so. As we pointed out last week, Cleveland, 9 for 13 on 3rd downs. That's a big reason why they won the game last week.
and the Giants had one possession in the third quarter of that game. Just one possession. That was it.
Yeah, again, credit Cleveland because they did what they had to do to win, but it also goes to show you the Giants have to be very careful in those third down situations.
Yeah, I think that for either team, it's going to be whoever. Obviously, time of possession is always important for any game. Mostly, you just want to keep your offense on the field, run out that clock to be able to win the game. But also for the Ravens, not so much the past couple of games, but in earlier games in the season, they struggled a lot with penalties. And that was a big thing. They gave up so many yards and first downs because of their penalties. So I think they need to be a little bit more careful with that going into this game to not give up third downs that turn into a first down because of pass interference.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point. And this kind of just dawned in my head now. Blake Martinez, you brought up the run defense for the Giants. Blake Martinez, 128 tackles. He's been an excellent acquisition for us. I think he's kind of like your Patrick Queen in a sense. I know Blake's been around a lot more. I think he has a step up on Queen, but Blake has been pretty much the lead. He's yet to make a Pro Bowl. I don't know how he hasn't, but I think Blake being healthy this year, Bradbury being back, that's going to help us. Leonard Williams. I think it's going to be a closer game than people think, but there's a couple other players I wanted to touch on. LJ Fort, Katelyn, fifth-ranked inside linebacker against the run in the NFL, and then Chuck Clark, who's a very hard-hitting safety, young guy who, once Earl Thomas left the team in the offseason, it was kind of like, whoa, like who's going to step up? Deshaun Elliott, Chuck Clark, they've done a good job, and you mentioned the loss of C.J. Mosley a year or two ago. LJ Fort's done a nice job too.
Yeah, he's definitely doing a great job, especially when we had a few injuries. He would definitely pick up, he would make more appearances when there was injuries, and I felt that he did a great job and made the plays he needed to. I also really do like Chuck Clark, and I've liked him for a couple of seasons. I feel that he's a great playmaker, and he's also not talked about enough. He's been on that team for a few years and been making a lot of plays for the Ravens defense. I feel like that gets overshadowed a little bit. But also about Blake Martinez, I was also surprised to see that he didn't make the Pro Bowl. And I was a little surprised to see that Evan Ingram did because, he's – I don't know. He has one touchdown the entire season, and he'll have I don't remember what game it was. He had a game where it was almost 100 receiving yards, and then a couple weeks ago it was 28. He's I don't know, he's inconsistent. Obviously that has to do with the injuries. Daniel Jones will play, and then Colt McCoy. Obviously, he has to adjust to that. But I was surprised to see that because I do also think that Patrick Queen can be a Blake Martinez. Especially they have pretty similar stats right now. They both have a few sacks in the season, a few forced fumbles, definitely making plays for each of their defenses.
Yeah, I agree. Both players have done a phenomenal job. Both of these teams have really good players on each side of the ball. And a couple of weeks ago, some of the YouTubers I follow said this Baltimore game, all of a sudden, it looks like a lot more winnable game. Well, that's changed back the other way. I don't think this is as much of a winnable game as we thought it would be 3 to 4 weeks ago when Baltimore was on a slide a little bit. And a couple more questions here. Des Bryant is a guy that you guys brought in and wanted to give him a shot. Scored his first touchdown in purple the other week. Do you like him? What's your – there's a lot of issues at the wide receiver spot, a lot of inconsistencies outside of Hollywood Brown. Even he's been hit or miss for you for your team, I think. But do you like Des Bryant?
Gotta say that felt weird seeing him throw up the X in the end zone for the purple.
So when they first were signing him to the practice squad in the middle of the season, I was honestly totally against it because I felt that the receivers that we had weren't they're capable of making plays. They just weren't stepping up to the plate and doing what they needed to do. But then after this week. I felt that it's kind of something that we needed. I feel like he's a veteran. Obviously, he's been out for a few seasons, but I feel that he can also like teach like Hollywood Brown, which is in his second season. He could like teach the younger receivers, like give them pointers. I feel like he could be like a good mentor. So now that he's on our regular squad and making plays and doing what he needs to do, I do like him now. I was against it at first, but he is doing what he needs to do on the Ravens offense.
So my last question to you is John Harbaugh, because he took a risk on Dez, who's starting to turn out to be a decent acquisition. He's been your coach for a long time. Who do you think the Ravens should target? I know we're looking very far ahead, but what's a hole that you think needs to be addressed in either free agency or the draft this upcoming offseason from what you've seen in 2020?
Definitely a wide receiver, because the Ravens have not had good wide receivers. The only year I've been a Ravens fan for like 10 years, and the only year we actually had decent receivers was our Super Bowl year with Anquan Bolden, Jacoby Jones, and Torrey Smith. And then other than that, we had like Steve Smith, but he was like at the end of his career. We need like a solid young talented receiver, because we don't have that. We never had that in past seasons. I also feel that we need another offensive lineman, definitely, just to strengthen that line. But other than that, I feel that we have a pretty solid team. Our running backs are solid, tight ends, corners, all of those are positions I don't think we need to work on other than the receivers and the line.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough task for the Giants, and you hit home on a lot of those points. All around, the Ravens are a solid team, and one of the viewers has a comment that's kind of too long to pin, otherwise it would block us out. John, we kind of already addressed that. Katelyn mentioned how the Giants are really good at stopping the run. I think if you put an emphasis on Lamar to lead with his arm, that could be a bit more of a challenge against Graham. Is Dez playing this weekend for the Ravens? I heard he was one of 9 Ravens to miss practice today.
Yeah, I saw that too. I think he'll play. I think it's just like a minor thing. I think most of our players that are on the injury list today, I think most of them are going to play, including Marcus Peters and Calais Campbell.
Hank, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I think one of the key things if the Giants are going to win this game, they're going to have to make Lamar beat them for sure. I know he's gotten a little bit better with the throwing, but I still think that's something the Giants have to like. That's going to be vital if the Giants are going to win, and because we know stopping the run has been one of the strengths, but see if Lamar Jackson beats us, then again, gotta give your cap to him. Or tip your cap, rather. Sorry.
100%.
And another thing I got to say is I think it's probably – I would imagine this game to be another very low-scoring game. I could definitely see the Giants making a close one out of it. Not going to say they're winning. But what?
I would have agreed with that like 2 weeks ago, but I don't know. I think I'm predicting this game. I think the Ravens are going to put up at least 28 points. And I think in the beginning it's going to be a close game. But yeah. I think once the second half starts, I feel that's going to be all the Ravens.
Do you have a score prediction?
I'd have to say probably 28-17. So like still a 2-score game. But probably, closer than people would expect. But I think the Ravens are going to take off in the second half of this game.
Yeah, I actually have Baltimore winning too. I have them winning. I don't know if they get 28. I think they'll get at least 20. It depends how the running game goes. I mean, I think with Lamar Jackson, they're very explosive. I'm going to go ahead and say Baltimore 23, Giants. I'll give us 16. Only because I think Gano keeps us in the game. He's been a great kicker for us this year. I think we only scored 1 touchdown.
Dang it, Tom. I also had the Giants going 23. Why do you got to copy me, man?
We think very opaque.
I know. I'm just messing with you. All kidding aside, though, yeah, I don't have the Giants winning either, unfortunately. I'm gonna say 26-16.
All
I
right.
wanted to, for comic relief, use the Monsters Inc. score and say 23-19, but since you copied me with 23, I'm just gonna say 26-16.
Very nice. Katelyn, anything you'd like to add before we let you go here tonight?
No, other than I think that the Ravens are a team that people are underestimating right now, and I think that they're going to surprise people in January.
Very well could happen. I could see it 100%.
Any given Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say. Any given Sunday. As cliched as it sounds, it's true.
Katelyn, once he wins that first playoff game, it's going to be all right. It's just getting that first playoff win for Lamar is.
I agree.
That's the critics just
definitely.
I definitely agree, because that's definitely like, if you want to be the franchise quarterback, you're gonna have to win a playoff game.
Otherwise, it's going to run out of town very quickly.
Yeah.
Katelyn, well, thank you so much for joining Hank and I tonight. Remember to check Katelyn out at the Kicking Off with Katelyn podcast, and you're on several different platforms, right?
Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Awesome. So I'll make sure to check that out. Katelyn, hope you have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and stay safe out there. And let's go. I almost said let's go Ravens, but best of luck to you and your team on Sunday.
Shame on you, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tom. I've been giving you a hard time a lot with the past few minutes. It's only
you have. It's getting warm in this jacket. But Katelyn, thank you so much, and yeah, good luck this Sunday. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me. Good luck to your team as well.
Thanks, Katelyn.
Yes, thanks, Katelyn.